Corey Hibben is our guest today. Corey is actually the host of the Health Hustle podcast. You're located in Austin, Texas. Corey, thank you so much for coming on to our podcast, the Fitness Business Podcast.
Excited to be here. I'm no stranger to a microphone, so this will be good.
Definitely no stranger. You get used to that pretty quickly. So, one thing that I liked, as I kind of followed you on Instagram and Facebook and got to know you a little bit, I saw something I thought was pretty cool. And you said, when it comes to your health, there is no one size fits all. I like that.
Yeah, I would say that shows up in most areas of life of what I've found recently. I mean, even from like a business and marketing standpoint as well, which is obviously a lot of what I talk about, is just understanding that we live in a really cool time, is that there is no one size fits model. I think that it's all unique to the kind of lifestyle that you want to live and what's unique to your own background and upbringings and things that you deal with. And yeah, it's definitely something that I try to live by, is just understanding that, like, just because somebody does something one way doesn't mean it's the right way for you, and just being more open to other opportunities that might show up.
Yeah, well, I absolutely got to tell you, your Instagram social media page is phenomenal. I really scrolled through a lot. I like the writings that you write. It's very clean, organized, neat. You tell a story pretty much with each picture. And FBP family, you have to go follow Corey Hyben on Instagram. I'm telling you, it's well worth it. Now, as I was looking through your Instagram, one more thing, I learned something about you, and that's usually why I do this. And kind of seems like you got like a crush on your motorcycle. And did I see that it was recently stolen?
Oh man. Okay. Huge. That's funny that you noticed that. Yeah. I'll give you the super short story. So I actually only recently got into riding motorcycles about a year ago because of my father. My and my mother actually met via riding motorcycles. So it's kind of been a big part of their life. And so I was having dinner with them one day and I was like, Dad, like, I'd really love to ride a motorcycle. And he's like, cool. Like, you want to try mine? So if you don't know anything about motorcycles, my dad rides one of the most like heavy duty Harley Davidson, like 1200 cc and all the booster packs and giant saddles. This thing weighs like 1,000 pounds, right? And he lines me up on the street and he goes, all right, like, you know how to drive a car with a clutch. It's kind of similar. I was like, cool, can't wait. I'm super excited. And I'm sitting on this motorcycle and I'm about to get going. And I do the thing that most people do when they're a little bit nervous to ride a motorcycle, is I killed it a couple times, right? Like, let go of the clutch too quickly, motorcycle died. Let go of the clutch too quickly, motorcycle died. And my dad said the classic thing that I feel like everybody freaking says. And he goes, just give it a little bit more throttle. Just give it a little bit more throttle and you'll probably be okay. And I was like, okay, Dad, I'll give it a little bit more throttle. And so I gave it a little bit more. And before I know it, I'm going like 40 miles an hour down the street, right? And I have no idea how to actually ride a motorcycle. And what happens is that all of a sudden an oncoming truck is coming at me, and we're in a neighborhood. And if you don't know anything about motorcycles, I thought you could just like turn the steering wheel and you could just turn, right? It's not how a motorcycle works. You have to actually lean your body and you have to be able to control the weight that's sitting underneath you. I didn't know that. And so I panicked. I slammed the brakes. I let go of the clutch. I dumped the bike. I rolled into the berm. And my dad comes running down the street and he goes, "You did such a good job." Nice job. Way to go. As I'm like laying in the berm, like totally freaked out by this event, right? So fast forward a few months, I started having PTSD essentially from this event. Is like, I didn't realize that, like, I could have really hurt myself and I really could have messed myself up to the point where like it literally scared me so bad that I would lay in bed at night and my heart rate would start like beating in the middle of the night, even just thinking about getting on a motorcycle again. And I was like, this is a problem. And this happened about a year ago. And so basically what I did is I ended up signing up for a basic rider motorcycle course, and took this course. And by the end of the course, I fell in love with motorcycling. I got over my fear. I actually ended up buying a motorcycle that next day. And I had been riding it for the past year until, which you saw on that Instagram post, of it literally got stolen out of my apartment complex in the garage. It was gone for a week. And then a week later, whoever stole it brought it back completely broken, thrashed, torn up. I talked to the cops about it. And apparently, here in Austin, Texas, it's a very common thing for people to steal vehicles, do drugs, thrash the vehicle, and then bring it back. And so it was like this roller coaster of emotions of like super excited to have this motorcycle, lost the motorcycle, got the motorcycle back, and now I don't have a motorcycle anymore. Although I did recently buy an e-bike, which that thing goes like 30 miles an hour, so that's pretty fun. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind of a journey of this whole motorcycle thing. So I don't even know what to do next now.
That's okay. Well, I kind of followed along on the journey on the Instagram page, so it was a lot of fun, and I knew I just had to tease you about it a little bit. So, but the e-bike is good. Here where I live, there's overload of e-bikes. So,
They're so fun.
they are so fun. All right. Well, as much as it sounds like we're talking about motorcycles today, we're actually going to bring it back and we're going to talk about your email list and how it can add value to your business. So I'm excited to get your episode started. It's funny, emails, it's like you feel so passe about emails now that we have texting and social media, but it's still an important key component of your business. So, because of that, I want you to start off with your very first question, and that is, why are email lists so important to a business's marketing strategy?
Yeah, this is a conversation I have with my clients all the time as somebody who's in the marketing world, is that I don't think people realize that it's really the only audience that you own. Mark Zuckerberg owns your Facebook, and China, somewhere in China, owns your TikTok, and there's all the other social media platforms. They're great. There's nothing against them. And so I'm going to get on my soapbox for like 4 seconds here. And I want people to just really, this is what I want them to take away, is that social media is an incredible tool for garnering attention and making new connections and starting relationships. But if you're not taking that relationship to somewhere where you can have an actual personal one-on-one conversation with somebody, you're missing out on a massive part of your business. And I can't tell you the number of clients, as somebody who has a marketing agency specifically for people in the fitness industry and in the health industry, is how few of them understand how important that is. I see it so often that they do a phenomenal job of creating content and garnering attention and building a following and having this online presence on their Instagram page or their Facebook page or whatever it is. And then in a blink of an eye, their account gets deleted, they get hacked, they get censored. There's so many ways that they can basically lose all these connections that they have. Plus, if you just look at the base statistics behind the actual people that buy from social media versus people that buy from a newsletter, it's not even comparable. Like, there is something, so nobody in your life, I would be willing to bet, doesn't have an email list. But I'd be willing to bet a lot of people might not have a Facebook, they might not have an Instagram, they might not have a TikTok, they might not be on all the platforms. Your grandma has an email list. I guarantee it. And so if you're not finding that you're getting connections through people on an email list, you're definitely missing out on a huge part of your business.
Okay. I never even thought of that about getting hacked and you kind of just, possibly lose or they shut down your whole entire account. So it's a really good point. So basically, is that how you would compare an email list with social media marketing, or is there other tips to that?
Yeah, and just as a side note about getting hacked, I literally just recently interviewed a friend of mine here in Austin, Texas on my podcast show who's in that health space, and I went to go tag him on something, and I wasn't allowed to tag him on something because of like some COVID restriction or something like that. And so like it was just another reminder for me of like how little you actually control on the social media side of things. To answer your original question though, of like how would something like that look? I mean, it's it's about understanding what your audience is really in need of and figuring out how you can best provide something for them that would make them want to connect with you and have a deeper connection with you. Because like I can say all these things about how important an email newsletter is or an email list is, but if you're not providing something of value to that person that would make them want to come off of the platform, then it's not really going to be that fruitful for you. And so like that's where it comes down to like, do you have something that's compelling enough for somebody to get off the platform to come onto an email list and actually want to continue that relationship with you? And if you don't, that's probably a good sign that maybe you should be looking at what you're actually offering these people.
So I know this question is kind of basic, but yet I think it's kind of the baseline to fitness businesses. So for all of our fitness business podcast family out there that are gym owners or they're getting ready to open a gym or recently opened a gym, what is your best advice on how to collect an email list?
Great question. So when I first got into the marketing world and the email world and the fitness world, as one might say, you're going to find a lot of information out there about creating an ebook or creating a freebie or creating some sort of lead funnel or giveaways. Like there's a lot of these little things and tips that you can get from getting people onto your email newsletter. But really at the end of the day, people will sign up to your newsletter because they like you as a human. And so if you can give them the carrot on a stick or give them a reason to want to continue to engage in a relationship with you as a human, as a person, that is going to be the ultimate ticket to getting somebody to sign up. There's a guy that I follow on LinkedIn who I've been following him for a very, very long time. And he doesn't do any freebies. He doesn't do any sort of ebooks. He doesn't sell you any of these products. He's basically like, listen, if you like what I'm posting and you like me as a human, you can go to my website and just read all these blogs and newsletters for free, or you can get it in your inbox. It's totally up to you. And I think that's a really good approach for anybody else that's in the fitness industry or thinking about, okay, I know how important it is to have an email list. And I know that I need to get people onto that email list. What are you essentially creating, and how can you show people that you're creating something in that newsletter that's compelling them enough to want to continue that relationship with you? And really it just comes down to, are you talking about a topic and adding value to a way that's adding life specifically to their life? So take a quick poll on who are the people that are following you on your social media account, what do they want, and how can you continue to answer questions for them on another platform like an email list or a blog or whatever the case might be.
So I think what I'm hearing from you is you are saying that lead magnets are still relevant.
They're fine. I think that I think it's important to know where we are in 2022 in that we are very protective of our emails. I think you and I can both agree is that anyone we know is like, we're very skeptical to sign up for any sort of email because we're afraid of the spam and everything that's going to come with it. So if you can show yourself to be just a trustworthy person that's writing something in an email newsletter that's of value to that population, that is going to be a far more long-term and short-term strategy to actually grow an email list than just having some sort of freebie with a one-off and then they get into your newsletter and realize it's just a spam show.
Okay. So we are now starting to collect the emails. Besides just the emails, are any other details that a business owner should collect that go hand in hand with the actual email?
Good question. Honestly, this is going to sound contrarian, but no. I feel like literally just having the email address is probably the most important piece of it. Obviously, you could add collecting names, you could add collecting phone numbers, you could add collecting whatever the heck else you want. But honestly, that starts to trickle into that original point of like, are you just providing a really good quality newsletter with good valuable content to this person? And eventually, if you continue to do that, they're going to reach out to you anyways. And I don't think it's necessary for you to be the person that knows their name and email. Actually, it's funny, quick story. It literally just reminds me of, as of recently, I've been interested in getting into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so there's a few gyms here in Austin, obviously, and I signed up for one recently of like they offered a free trial. You could go in for a day, and if you go in for a day, you could get like a free month at this gym or whatever it was. And I signed up really quickly, not really thinking about it, which obviously was a mistake. And I've been getting literally, because my email or my phone number was in there, I've been literally getting like spammed text messages and emails of like, when are you coming in? We got open appointments for you. Like, what kind can you show up? To the point where I now no longer want to go there. Right. And so to answer your question of like, do we need to collect anything else? No, because I think that the most important thing is like, if they trust you enough to give you their email, that's enough that eventually down the road, if you continue to help and add value to them, they're going to reach out to you and want to work with you anyways down the road, versus being on the other end of the spectrum of just spamming them with text messages and emails and whatever the else case might be.
Okay, so I feel like maybe you kind of answered this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just in case there's something else you want to add to it. And that is, should we be using qualifying questions when collecting the emails, or do we just do like a wide reach where we, get them in and then get them qualified?
Yeah, I'm a pretty big believer in that. I think it can be really valuable to be known for something. And I think that, so if you're a fitness professional or a gym owner or a coach or whatever the case might be, and you're known for a specific thing that you help with, like a great example of this is like the knees over toes guy, right? Is like, I don't think the knees over toes guy really needs to qualify the people that are signing up for his newsletter or sign up for his programs. I feel like it's pretty clear as to why they're there and why they want to be there. And so if you've structured your personal brand or your business brand for that matter in the correct manner from the forefront of people know what you're offering and know what you provide, I don't feel like it's necessary to vet them, because they can very quickly see that based on the content that you're creating, based on what they find on your website, and based on just what you talk about. I feel like it should be pretty clear. If they're going into it with unclear of what it is that you offer, that's probably more of just a business and brand issue than it is an actual qualifying of the people that's coming into it.
Not to change subjects, but I guess I really am. I'm going to actually go back. You were saying about going to the jujitsu place, and next thing you know, you're just getting flooded. I'm sorry, anybody out there that's listening, if you work in the car industry, but I feel like the car dealerships are masters at that. Oh my goodness, they just flood your inbox, and then they're calling you, and then they're texting you, and they're sending you links to cars. And if I don't look at my phone for like a 5 hour period, I feel like I've got 20 messages from the car dealerships.
Totally. And like you gotta, I think it's important to understand how that makes you feel, right? Because it probably repels you to some degree. I think it's very important for us to understand where we are in today's world and today's marketplace. Is that I always compare it of being the difference between being a hunter or being a farmer. Is that a hunter goes out and seeks people and shoots them and attacks them and tries to get them as kill or as prey, which is often the marketing strategy of this car dealership that you're talking about or this Brazilian jiu-jitsu company that I'm talking about. Versus I feel like a healthier, better approach and honestly a more fruitful and fun and fulfilling approach that I found as a marketing agency is the farmer approach, is that I'm just watering my seeds. I'm just continuing to put things out there that are helpful and valuable to people. And I'm watering them to the point where they can hopefully grow and sprout into a point where maybe they need a little extra help and maybe they need me to come and prune and tune and put a little fertilizer on them or whatever you're into to help them grow without this approach of like, I need to hack them down and attack them and shoot them with a gun.
All right. Hunter versus farmer. Really cool. I like that. Awesome. So, what is your recommendation for storing the emails? Do you think using the club software is best? Do you use something like MailChimp, or what's your recommendation?
Yeah, great question. So first thing before any of that is don't just use your Gmail contacts or whatever it is that you're using, because that tells you nothing about the people that are actually opening it, what they're clicking on, what they're doing, what like you have to have some sort of data on what's actually happening with your emails and how many people are opening them. And you also want to, again, not to use another farmer analogy, but to prune the people that are actually on your email list. I pretty regularly will clean out the people that are on my email list that aren't opening the emails, because honestly, if you are sending people to emails, the people that aren't opening them, that's actually going to start to rank you higher, something that's spam and a whole other host of issues that come from that. And plus two, why are you emailing people that don't want to open your emails? That seems silly. And so that's the first thing to know is like, don't just use your Gmail account. And to answer your second question of like what software to use, I've used a lot of them. I've used MailChimp, MailerLite, ConvertKit, SendBlue, Flowdesk. The latest one lately is ActiveCampaign. They all have their pros and cons. I wish I could give you a blanket statement on which one is the best to use. It's going to depend on if you're selling products, if you're selling services, if you want to attach a blog to it, if you want to have a landing page to it. You can honestly do a quick Google search and just like, what are the best email services? And you're going to get a list with all the pros and cons and which ones are the best fit for you. And so like, I don't think there's a blanket statement as to which one is the best. I think it's unique to your scenario. But as of lately, for whatever reason, I've been using ActiveCampaign, if that's helpful for anybody.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. One thing I totally agree with you in the sense of using some type of software, because I know myself being in the positions that I've always worked, sending out mass emails. I'm just a junkie on the numbers as far as clicks or opens on what title got people to, and I hate to say this, but kind of bite. I love that stuff. I was always Googling like top titles of emails just to get people to open it, because once they opened it, I was like, I felt like what we had in the email was worthy and would be important to, what they wanted to know was going on at the gym, or there was a special or whatever. So yeah, I can't imagine working without some type of software that organizes all your emails.
Totally. I would just add to that too, like the two really key pieces of anybody that's wanting to go into this email newsletter thing is understanding how to write a hook, which is to your point of title, is understanding how to get somebody's attention. And number two is just how to be a good writer, how to just create content that people find compelling and useful and helpful. Like those are literally the only two skills you need. If you can get really good at those, you can grow a really healthy mail list.
I agree. And the thing is, I feel like you get one shot at it, because if they open one email that's like kind of like just like blah, 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 like loud noise, the chances of them opening up a second or the third or the fourth email It's tough. They won't do it. So it's like every email you send out, it has to be intentional. At least that's my opinion.
Totally agree. And that's why I like having a email template that I use. So I write all my emails the exact same, helps me create that something of value that's useful every single time. Because if you just went on there and just started hashing out some random content, it's unlikely every one of them is going to be super fruitful versus if you have a very good system or template that you use that you follow that can make sure you're hitting all the steps that you need to tell a compelling story or to put out useful content. It's super, super helpful.
All right. Well, this is a good segue right into my next question. And that is, how often do you recommend that we communicate to our email list?
So I want to preface this by saying that when I first started doing the email newsletter thing, I used to be terrified of people unsubscribing from my email list. And I always used to feel like that was like a shot to the gut of like, oh, like they don't like my email list and they unsubscribe from me. And why don't they like me? And like, why don't they like my content? And I just want to reframe that for people really quickly and just make them understand that if they are unsubscribing from your list, they are honestly doing you a favor because they're not your ideal client or customer, anyways. If you're writing content that is specific for a person that you're really trying to help and serve, and that content is specific for that person, they did you a favor by getting off your list. So stop looking at it as something as bad. Just I don't even know why you're watching it, anyways. If you get notifications from unsubscribe, turn it off. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Just create good content. But to answer your question of how often, I've always said a good recommendation is no more than twice a week, but no more, or excuse me, a bare minimum would be um, once a month, right? So no more than twice a week, but a bare minimum of once a month is because if you go longer than a month, people are honestly going to forget about you. They're not even going to know you're going to exist. And all of a sudden they're going to get an email in their inbox and they'll be like, who the heck is Dory? And why is she sending me an email? And what is going on here? Versus anything more than twice a week starts to feel like spam. Obviously, there's exceptions. Obviously, there's scenarios where people send out them every single day. There's certain newsletters that I also subscribe to that's every single day. But those are also people that have full teams writing newsletters and curating content and putting out really, really good content. If you don't have a giant team that's creating content for your newsletter, it's unlikely that you could send out more than twice a week of something of high quality if you're doing a really, really good job of it. And so like that's sort of the guideline, I would say. But honestly, the most important piece of it, regardless of whether it's twice a week or once a month, is the consistency behind it. It should be coming at the exact same time every single time, every single week or bi-week or month or whatever it is, almost like a television show. Is you want the consistency behind it because it triggers people in their brain of like, oh, they anticipate, they expect this email that's coming in at this day, at this time. I literally just recently talked to a buddy. Mine goes out every Tuesday, 5 a.m. on the dot. And I literally talked to a buddy the other day and I've never told him when this email was coming out. I never told him my timing, but he knew based on his life schedule. He's like, yep, I always expect your email 5 a.m. every day because he's a trainer and he gets up early as hell. So he sees it, but he always knows it's going to pop in at the exact same time. So like how often is less important than the consistency behind it.
Agree. Consistency. And you know what? I also agree with you on the unsubscribing. I look at the people that unsubscribe as they're just kind of refreshing my email list because if they
Totally.
unsubscribe, they're truly just not interested. And as much as you want everybody to be interested and you want everybody to think that what you put in your email is uber important, not reality is they don't.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So, do you have any recommendations or advice on when we put this email together? Like, what should we be sending?
Yeah. So when I first started an email list, it was about everything. And that was a mistake. And it's the most common mistake I see, especially people in the health and fitness industry, is they are very passionate about the industry as whole and they try to talk about everything. They talk about the workouts and the nutritions and the coolest new biohacking thing and all the things in the scope of health and nutrition and whatever the case might be. And so my best tip for growing an email list isn't the like hacky of like freebies and quizzes and all those things. It honestly, I think the most important thing people can take away is getting very specific on who it is you're talking to and what you're talking about. So if you're the only, or I shouldn't say the only, if you're one of the only or one of the best people talking about, we'll say for sake of example, body weight workouts for 40-year-old moms, like that is the best way to grow a newsletter list because somebody sees that newsletter and they go, oh, I'm a 40-year-old mom with kids. Like this is going to be phenomenal. I should definitely sign up for this. That is going to be your best hack at growing an email list.
Mm-hmm. Yes, great advice. All right, Corey. Well, we're just about done our interview, and I just kind of want to hand the mic over to you one more time. Is there any other piece of information that you could deliver to our FPP family that you think is important that would help to add value to their email lists?
Yeah, I'd say final point for me, it's kind of three steps, is I would say know who you're talking to, have a unique perspective on that topic, and use your newsletter as content for social media to drive them back to the newsletter. That's what I'd say.
Is there anything else that you want to say that we didn't get the opportunity for you to say?
No, I just appreciate you bringing me onto the show, and it's been a lot of fun. And if this is of value to anybody, I would love to just like hear what you got out of it.
All right, perfect.